Welcome to this deep dive, and we're going to be looking at the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8.
Okay.
You've brought us some excerpts that deal with the Israelites and their entry into the Promised Land.
Right.
And it's just this incredible moment of, relief after a long and tough journey, finally reaching this place overflowing with abundance.
Yeah.
But tucked away in these verses is a warning that feels surprisingly relevant even today in our world.
Yeah.
That's constantly pushing for more, more, more.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Imagine, going from 40 years of wandering in a barren desert
Right.
to a land described as flowing with milk and honey.
Okay.
That phrase alone just paints such a vivid picture of what awaited the Israelites.
Okay, but milk and honey, that's a pretty poetic description.
Sure.
What did that abundance actually look like for them back then?
I think you can think of it as a feast for the senses after years of scarcity.
Right.
We're talking about fields bursting with grain orchards, laden with fruits, olive groves stretching as far as the eye can see, dates, figs, pomegranates, all these delicacies were part of the Promised Land's bounty.
Yeah.
And of course, honey, symbolizing just the sweetness of life itself, was plentiful.
Oh, wow.
It was a complete reversal of their harsh reality in the wilderness.
So they're finally entering this time of incredible prosperity.
Yeah.
But then comes this warning in Deuteronomy 8.
Right.
Be careful not to forget the Lord your God. It seems kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Why would abundance make people forget God?
Well, it speaks to a very human tendency.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. When things are going well, it's easy to get caught up in that feeling of, I did this, I earned this.
Yeah.
Pride can creep in, whispering that our success is solely due to our own brilliance or hard work.
It's like that entrepreneur who forgets all the struggles,
Yeah.
the sleepless nights, the rejections they faced before their big break.
Yeah, exactly.
Suddenly they're attributing everything to their own genius.
Right.
Forgetting all the factors that contributed to their success.
Exactly. Or the athlete who just focuses solely on their talent, ignoring the coaches, the family's sacrifices, even just the lucky breaks that led to their victory.
Yeah.
It's that subtle shift from gratitude to a sense of self-reliance,
Right.
a belief that we are the sole authors of our good fortune.
Deuteronomy uses a powerful metaphor to illustrate this point.
Okay.
The manna from heaven.
Yes.
This was the miraculous food that sustained the Israelites during those difficult years in the wilderness.
And even this daily miracle, this tangible expression of God's provision, was meant to instill humility
Right.
and a sense of dependence.
Yeah.
There was a constant reminder that they were not self-sufficient,
Okay.
but reliant on a power beyond themselves.
And here's a fascinating detail from Exodus.
Okay.
The manna tasted like something made with honey.
Mm.
This sweetness, even in their time of drought, foreshadows the abundance of the Promised Land.
It's like a beautiful foreshadowing, right?
Yeah.
Even in the barren desert, there was this taste of the sweetness to come. And it reinforces this idea that even in times of abundance, the enjoyment of those blessings should point back to the ultimate source,
Right.
God's provision.
So even when surrounded by orchards and honey-laden beehives, the taste should remind them of the miraculous manna, the sweetness that sustained them when they had nothing.
Precisely. And this principle extends far beyond just basic survival.
Okay.
James 1:17 reminds us, every good and perfect gift is from above. Whether it's a simple pleasure like a delicious meal or a major life achievement, the underlying message is the same.
Yeah.
Recognizing the source of our blessings fosters humility and gratitude.
So whether it's savoring that honey from the Promised Land or celebrating a career breakthrough today, it's all ultimately a gift.
Yes.
But Moses doesn't sugarcoat the consequences of forgetting that.
No.
He warns that forgetting God leads to destruction, a same fate as the nations Israel conquered.
Yes.
And it's not about divine punishment in a vengeful sense.
Right.
It's more about the natural consequences that come from turning away from our source of goodness and strength.
Yeah, it's like cutting ourselves off from the very roots that nourish and sustain us.
Right.
We might experience temporary success, but ultimately we become unmoored adrift without a true anchor. And this brings us to a concept that resonates deeply even today,
Okay.
the concept of idols.
Now, when we think of idols, we might picture statues or figures. But in a modern context, what does it mean to have an idol?
An idol can be anything that takes God's place in our hearts.
Okay.
It's anything we elevate above our relationship with the divine.
Yeah.
It could be wealth status, our careers, even good causes.
It's so easy to get caught up in those things, to let them consume our thoughts and dictate our actions.
Exactly. And the danger lies in that subtle shift.
Right.
When those pursuits become our primary focus, when they dictate our values and decisions,
Yeah.
they essentially become idols. We start chasing fulfillment in things that can never truly satisfy the deepest longings of our hearts.
It's like chasing after a mirage in the desert.
Right.
It seems like it will quench your thirst, but you get closer and closer, and it's never actually there.
And that's the heart of the warning in Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
It's a call to examine our hearts, to see what we're truly placing our hope and trust in.
So in a world that's constantly pushing us to achieve, acquire, and strive for more, how do we stay grounded?
Right.
How do we remember the true source of our blessings
Yeah.
and avoid falling into the trap of idolatry?
That is the question.
It's like we're surrounded by these shimmering mirages, in the desert of modern life.
Yeah.
Everywhere we look, there's something promising us happiness,
Right.
fulfillment, or a sense of worth.
Right.
But the more we chase those things, the more elusive they become.
It's true. We live in a culture that thrives on discontentment.
Yeah.
We're constantly being told we need more, that we're not enough as we are.
Right.
And it's easy to get caught in that cycle, always striving, always yearning for something just out of reach.
But Deuteronomy seems to offer a different perspective.
Yeah.
It's not about denying the blessings in our lives, but about recognizing their source and cultivating a heart of gratitude.
Yes. And there's a beautiful connection made in Deuteronomy between experiencing blessings and acknowledging where they come from.
Okay.
Verse 10 says, "When you have eaten and are filled, you will honor and thank the Lord your God for the good land he has given you." It's like a direct link between enjoying the gifts and recognizing the giver.
So it's not just about having like a fleeting feeling of thankfulness. It's about actively expressing that gratitude.
Exactly. Gratitude isn't just a passive emotion.
Yep.
It's an active choice, a deliberate act of remembering and honoring the source of our blessings.
Right.
And that expression can take many forms.
It could be through prayer, through acts of service, or even simply sharing our blessings with others.
Absolutely.
It's about letting that gratitude flow outwards, making it an active force in our lives and the lives of those around us.
And that outward expression of gratitude actually reinforces our inward sense of dependence on something greater than ourselves.
Yeah.
It creates this beautiful feedback loop.
The more we express our gratitude, the more we become aware of all the things we have to be grateful for.
And the more we recognize that our blessings ultimately come from a source beyond ourselves,
Right.
the more we're drawn to seek a deeper connection with that source.
Okay.
Whether we call it God, the universe, or simply a force for good in the world,
Yeah.
that connection becomes a source of strength and guidance.
So it's not just about saying thank you, it's about living a life that reflects that thankfulness.
Yes.
A life marked by humility and generosity.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But here's the million-dollar question. How do we cultivate a heart of gratitude in a world that's constantly trying to convince us that we need more?
Right.
How do we break free from that cycle of comparison and discontentment?
It's like we need a new pair of glasses.
Yes.
A way to shift our focus from what we lack to what we already have.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And the good news is we can train ourselves to see the world through a lens of gratitude.
Oh, okay.
It starts with simply noticing the everyday blessings that we often take for granted.
Those simple things like a warm cup of coffee in the morning,
Yes.
a roof over our heads, the love of family and friends. These are the building blocks of a good life.
And yet we so easily overlook them. We
Yeah.
get caught up in the big things,
Yeah.
the achievements, the possessions, and forget to appreciate the simple gifts that make life truly rich.
It's about shifting our perspective, intentionally focusing on what we have rather than what we lack.
And as we practice this, as we make gratitude a conscious choice,
Right.
it becomes a habit, a way of seeing the world that brings a deep sense of peace and contentment.
It's like developing a mental muscle.
Uh-huh.
The more we exercise it, the stronger it becomes.
Yes.
And that strength is invaluable, especially when life throws us those inevitable curveballs.
Because life isn't always smooth sailing.
No.
We all face challenges, setbacks, and times of uncertainty. But a grateful heart can weather those storms with greater resilience.
It's like having an anchor that keeps you grounded when the waves are crashing around you.
Yes.
That sense of gratitude helps us find stability even in the midst of chaos.
And speaking of challenges, Deuteronomy reminds us that even trials can be opportunities for growth.
Okay.
Verse 16 says, "He gave you manna to eat in the wilderness, to humble and test you, so that in the end it might go well with you.
Hmm.
It's a reminder that difficulties can refine our faith and draw us closer to that source of strength and wisdom.
It's like those intense workouts that push us to our limits but ultimately make us stronger.
Yes.
We might not enjoy the process, but we appreciate the result.